You ever feel it, that subtle tension, not when things are falling apart, but right when they start falling into place? You get the text, the green light, the door that was always shut finally cracks open. And instead of relaxing into it, you tense, you hesitate, you brace like you're waiting for the other shoe to drop. Most people miss this moment, but it's one of the clearest signs that your system isn't wired for ease. It's trained for survival. We usually assume that if we're tensing up, we must be afraid. Afraid of getting hurt, afraid of losing control, afraid it won't last. And sure, there's often fear in the mix, but most of the time, there's something deeper underneath. Your system is really asking, who am I now if I'm not who I've always been? Let me give you an example. Someone I worked with was always the reliable one, calm, capable, always in control. They finally created a relationship where they didn't have to carry everything alone. But instead of relaxing into it, they tensed. They pulled back. They micromanaged. They hesitated to be vulnerable. Not because they were afraid of the relationship, but because part of them was grieving who they used to be. And that's often what we're feeling when we brace, a quiet sense of loss, even when something better is showing up. Here's something most people never talk about. Every time you grow, something has to fall away. Maybe it's a role you played. Maybe it's a survival pattern. Maybe it's just the emotional armor you've worn for years. And even if you want the growth, your nervous system doesn't speak logic. It speaks familiarity. So when you start choosing calm instead of control, connection instead of independence, your system might feel a little lost. That's why the body braces, not because it's resisting what's happening, but because it doesn't quite know how to settle into this new version of you. That confusion can feel like fear or anxiety, but really it's just your system adjusting. Most people notice the tightening, the hesitation, the shift in sensation, but then they interpret it the way they always have. I'm scared. Maybe I'm not ready. Maybe this isn't right. But here's a reframe. What if that tension isn't a stop sign? It's just your body trying to let go of an old identity. A client of mine started getting real recognition at work for the first time in years. Praise, promotions, leadership roles, and suddenly they shrank. Not on the outside, but inside. They second-guessed, got quieter, held back. When we unpacked it, the emotion underneath wasn't fear, it was disorientation. Because for so long, they were the invisible one, the helper behind the scenes. Now they were being seen, valued, expected to lead, and their body responded with tension. Not because something was wrong, but because something had shifted. If this is resonating, hit subscribe. I share videos each week to help you train your inner world with clarity and structure so you can live from the inside out. When you start bracing, your system's basically saying, I don't recognize this version of you yet. It's trying to keep you safe by keeping you familiar. But familiar doesn't always mean aligned, especially those who have built their identity around control, composure, or going it alone. So when you start letting in joy or connection or peace, your system might flag it as unsafe, not because it is, but because it's new. So it braces. It tries to create certainty the only way it knows how, by falling back on the old pattern. That's not a flaw, that's just training. And the good news is anything that's been trained can be retrained. So next time you feel yourself pulling back, pause, not to overthink it, not to dissect it, just to check in, what emotional pattern am I reinforcing right now? Because when your body tenses as life opens up, you're not practicing presence, you're practicing contraction. You're reinforcing the familiar signal, control, withdrawal, distrust. But you don't have to stay there. Even while that tightness is present, you can shift into something else. Not pretending, not pushing, but introducing a new signal. Calm, confidence, openness. Not on the surface, but in your breath, in your posture, in your internal tone. This is how you build emotional capacity moment by moment. If you're hearing this and thinking, this is me, you're not broken, you've just trained a pattern that no longer fits, and you can train something different. Here's where it all comes together. Most people define success by what's happening out there, the job, the relationship, the opportunity. But here's the question, can your inner state hold it? Because that's where the real shift happens. If your systems only practice managing stress, disappointment, or chaos, then things like joy, ease, or connection might feel too much. And that's when we brace, not because we don't want it, but because we haven't trained for it. This is why emotional work matters, not to fix you, but to expand your capacity to live the life you're already building. Because otherwise, we keep hitting the same limit. We rise, then retreat. We open, then shut down. But when you train for something different, when you teach your body how to stay steady as things go well, you stop bracing and you start living. What emotional pattern are you practicing on repeat without realizing it? And is it actually aligned with the life you're trying to create? If not, what would it look like to train a new one? If you're ready to stop managing symptoms and start building a steady, resilient internal baseline, I've built a system that can help. It integrates emotion, nervous system, and perception. So you don't just understand your patterns, you actually shift them. The link's below if you want to check it out. I also share weekly tips and practices on Instagram at Mike Wang Coaching. And if you want to go deeper, you can join the newsletter below. Thanks for being here. See you in the next video.